You're such an asshole.
Hey, Cappy, keep me anonymous. I've been living in leftist shithole for 16 years. I'm in my mid-30s. I still have the same one-bedroom apartment, no house, never married, no kids. Nothing in my life has improved being in this city. Yeah, you are when you are surrounded. What is it? You can't soar with the eagles if you're surrounded by turkeys, and you are in an armpit. There's leftist shitholes like San Francisco and New York, and then there's armpits that are has-been cities but have been wiped out largely because we outsource jobs to China overseas. But like Duluth, Green Bay, what else? Toledo, and Cincinnati's to the south. Toledo, what's the other one? Cleveland. I think those are armpit cities, and you're in an armpit city. There's nothing there. Which is one of the most crime-ridden cities in my state. I have no life opportunities there. I am a CNC machinist, and I was also in the union for 3 years. My question, would it be an idiotic idea to move to Japan? I went there in April of this year for a few weeks, and I loved it. I made a few friends. I met a girl out there who I'm still talking to. The culture, the people, the food, the efficiency. Yeah, the lack of shit in the streets. It's exactly how you described Equalizer 3. I think I found my people. My problem. Here's where, yeah, man, you gotta up your thinking game here. Okay. I can't find a job sponsorship in my field. Well, what does that tell you? Look, the Japanese are the most polite, racist people you're going to find, and they have every right to be. It's Japan. It's their country. They have a great and rich culture. If I had such a culture, I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, come on in. Sure. Have your own kids here. Yeah. Teach them whatever the fuck you want. They're not America. And thank God, because, I don't want you want real diversity, you want true diversity. Cultures need to be maintained. Why? That's not your country. They're not going to give you a CNC machining job. And while CNC is an okay job, it's not this end all. You're not like a brain surgeon going over there. They don't need you. You're going to take a job from some other, equally middle class, just trying to get by Japanese guy. They're going to save it for them, and as they should, have every right. At least the Japanese don't hate themselves as much Americans do. Oh my God, everyone come in because they were so bad. I have applied to over 400 jobs since June. All right, you wasted a shit ton of time. Did you even look to see if you can legally work there? Have you even studied the culture a little bit about how xenophobic they are? And I'm saying this as a good thing. You're not going to get a job there. Matter of fact, most countries, they don't just let other people, most countries are not the United States. They actually respect themselves. Right now, I'll admit the United States has a history of immigrants, and okay, so that does differentiate us from others. But most countries, they're not, you go to Thailand. Oh shit, don't be surprised when the government of Thailand is primarily concerned about Thai people, not a marginally skilled somebody from an armpit town of America. I've been studying Japanese as a fourth language, yet no companies will hire me over the locals. No shit. Do you even have a work visa? My only option to get the foot in the door is English teaching, which pays horribly. Yeah. My plan, move to Tokyo with the teaching job sponsorship. I was offered a security guard job at a nightclub. I'm surprised you got that. Frankly, I'm surprised you got that. So I would pick that up for a second income. While I'm there, I'll refine my speaking skills and job hunt for positions in my trade. No, dude, okay. In the United States, you have a marginally skilled trade. Knock it off. It's like me trying to find a job. I did the same mistake. I tried to find a bank that gave a shit about loan quality and quality control. Right? You're banging your head. You sent out 400 resumes. You didn't get an answer. There's your fucking answer. I'm going to have my resume translated to Japanese and make multiple paper copies and hand out to potential employers while I'm in Tokyo. If that doesn't work, I'll just join the Yakuza. Just kidding. Wait. So you were sending English resumes over? Do you really? I don't know if that's true. Are you hearing yourself right now? I also have a disorder, so my biggest hurdle would be finding a neurologist out there who would take me as a patient. I think that's way easier than you finding a job. Like you have you got money, right? They'll treat you. If I can't find a doctor, I would have to return to the States. All right. I think you could find a doctor, but before you go over there and upend your life here, maybe make sure you find a doctor over there. Find out what the costs are. You got a lot more. Look, if you're going to go to the Philippines, let's just say, where they do speak English, you got the language barrier all done. All right. Then it's just culture and law. Can you own property? No, you can't. You're trying to go to a country where you barely speak the language. You have marginal skills. And I know your current place sucks, but it's going to suck more in Japan because you're not fluent in the language. And dude, I'd be worried more about being a bouncer at a nightclub in Tokyo because you don't speak the language. And I don't having work security myself. There are rules here in the United States where your hands are kind of tied behind your back in a lot of regards. Like I can't just go shoot people, obviously. I remember throwing somebody out of a bar, and because I'm a civilian, I'm not a cop. There was a chance that I'd get arrested or have assault charges pressed against me. It's just two civilians going at it. Now there are rules like okay, private property. I'm representative of the property owner. Ask a player you're trespassing. So there's rules you got to follow. But I speak the language. Do you know what's gonna happen when a group of young Japanese people are yelling at each other in a language you don't understand, and then all of a sudden you grab someone, not knowing they're the innocent person, not knowing what's going on? You're in a very compromised position working at a nightclub bouncer. Now, maybe well, not maybe, but certainly in Japan, the people are more mature, responsible than I don't know what the fighting situation is over there in Japan. There are more honorable people, I'll say that. So maybe it's not as risky as working in the United States, but no, this is a horror. You have what's shown me is you have come up with an incredibly shitty plan. This is a shit plan. You haven't looked into work visas. You haven't. I mean, fine, you like it. Maybe you got some contacts. But what's your goal? You want to become a citizen? It's highly doubtful you'll become a citizen. You got an ailment that requires medical attention. I think that's the easiest, though. I said you should be able to find a neurologist over there. Please let me know how stupid I am for coming up with this plan. Really fucking stupid. On the stupid scale, you're like an 8 out of 10 on this one. I think the only way it could have been, well, I'll just show up and see what happens. Or if you have any suggestions to improve it, I've visited multiple states in the U.S., but they're all pretty much the same shit as here. If I stay here, I'll only continue to be coaxed back into gang life. I left that behind over a decade ago. I just want to live in peace and be a good person. I could do that in Japan. Yes, I grew up without a father. My mother was a heroin-addicted prostitute, but we don't need no father. I'm not picking on you. I'm picking on how Democrats and the government all just like, oh, here's your government check. You don't need men. Men are bad. I was raised by a single grandparent. Most people in my situation end up dead or in jail, so I lucked out so far. All right, you've come a long way, and you're doing good, especially given where you came from. But if you look, going overseas to live is really like you got to have your shit together, man. And if you got that, you have gone the full spectrum. I don't want to say from, they got quintiles, poor, lower middle income, upper middle income, and rich. Okay, it's not going to perfectly correlate that, but in terms of the skills you need, you want to be going into the top tier rich, that top quintile, coming from legit poor. All right. And your naivete comes in the fact that you weren't taught shit by dad, certainly not the schools. And I'm sure you're pretty good at whatever expertise you had in the gang, whether it's running drugs or enforcer or whatever. I don't know. All right. But your naivete, which is not your fault, it show. Oh, I just go over there and get a job as a no. Your lack of awareness of Japanese culture, which takes time learning and all that. There should be books out there how to move to Japan where this would all be covered. That's where I'd start is reading one of those books. I'm giving you a very reduced bullet point version here, right? But there's the legal issue of you having a visa to stay. You just can't go to Japan or any other country. You got to get permission. Now, the United States and Japan have, I believe, an agreement where you're allowed to go as a tourist without a visa for like a short period of time. But you want to go there, you need a visa. The Modern Life John would be someone I'd be talking to. You also need to support yourself. Tokyo is an expensive city, and you're going to, be a bouncer and then teach English? Not a bad start. Not a bad start, but not enough. And then I know, have you looked at rental property? Have you done a preliminary budget to see what it's going to cost in Tokyo for you to live? And this is, again, not your fault, but you obviously don't know international trade or labor. Well, I'm a CNC machinist guy, and so I'll just go be a CNC machinist there. No, you won't. That's reserved for Japanese people. All right, so let's talk about a much more practical way to live overseas, whether it be Japan or anything else. You're playing an away game, all right? And there's only two ways to really there's three ways. One really hard, two a lot easier. Okay. The really hard way is the traditional, and I would say obsolete way, where you apply for a work visa and you get some kind of permission to have like a residency visa and a work visa over there. You would have to be a doctor or a high-level engineer, something where everybody in the world wants you because you have such a rare skill. You would also need to meet the language requirements. There would be an application process that would be years long, potentially. And this says nothing about you gaining citizenship. This is just for you to live and work in any country. That's the hard part. However, thank you to our Lord and Savior, the internet, there are other ways to do it, okay? The first easier way to do it is that you get some kind of online income. This is why me and Chad, among many other reasons, offered this course called The World's Greatest Accounting Career. Because not only is there a shortage of accountants and the pay is pretty good, but it lends itself incredibly well to remote and self-employment. Now, you're going to have to work in the field, and you have to work for someone else and get the experience. But I'm trying to think of another field that has a more direct or short path to self and remote employment. Now, accounting isn't the only field. I mean, I'm a podcaster. I'm remote. There are other, authors. They can be remote. Certain high-level software engineers, they can be remote. And increasingly so, some employers in America are allowing remote work, white-collar work. And I think that trend, I'm rather optimistic about that, is a office job can be done remotely. And so whether you're truly remote working for somebody else and they don't care that your IP address is coming out of Japan or a foreign country, or you are self-employed in an online field, you somehow generate your income online, then the biggest hurdle to living in Japan, let alone any other country, that's done. You can support yourself over there in Japan because you don't need a job in Japan. You're not going to take a job from one of the locals. And a guy who I really have to tip my hat to and applaud because he's come a long way. Go look at Matt Forney. Everyone made fun of him over a decade ago because he was fat, and he was dorky, and he was still is a good writer. And Matt has traveled. I envy Matt. I wish I was as good as Matt in this regard. He has traveled many more places than I have. He's been to Georgia, not the state, the country. He's been to Albania. I think he's been to Hungary, Poland, and now he currently resides in Mexico. Now, Matt was just a writer. This isn't the blogging days. This is before podcasting. Now he has a call. Matt Forney, look him up. And he's managed to live overseas for years without attaining citizenship in any of these places. And he doesn't need a work visa because he supports himself through his writing and his podcasting. Matt, isn't it funny everyone wanted to beat the shit out of you, all those Antifa leftist types don't have your life? Like they're still stuck in the United States working as baristas with their student loan debt, and you've been in you're a global traveler. It's awesome. It's great. It's good to see. But and the point I make with that is you don't have to make a shit ton of money. I doubt Matt makes six figures, but he doesn't have to. He gets by very minimally and he makes his money. So whatever it is, whether it's accounting, podcasting, writing, programming, or regular old, you're lucky enough to find some W-2 traditional employment where you can do remote work. That would be, I'd say, the most common way to get overseas. Then it becomes an issue. See, now you can support yourself anywhere. Then it becomes an issue of how long can you stay in one country. And this is where border hoppers are, or the passport, hoppers are, where, okay, in other words, you're a permanent tourist. You're never a resident. You could apply for residency. Some countries will allow you to apply for residency, but you can't vote. You're not a citizen. But you could be there for a while, but then you got to go away. And so sometimes you're allowed to be there for 6 months. A lot of people will go, they'll snowbird. They'll be in one country in the south during winter. People like Turkey, Mediterranean countries. And then they'll go up north, say like Poland or Germany or whatever for the summer months. And you just go back and forth. And as long as you don't overstay your visa or your residency stay or whatever, country don't mind. As long as you're not like Johnny Somali and committing crimes and insulting the people. I don't know. As long as you don't act like a prickish asshole American, they're fine. Unless you're in Sweden, they love it when you go up there and you tell them this shit and that they got to pay for you because they just love the immigrants they have over there that are entitled little bitches. And this is like, oh, we're Scandinavian. We can't say no. We got to maintain our politeness. You could go up to Sweden and just like start kicking people in the teeth and they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm kidding. You can't do that. They might arrest you and give you free lodging and food and health care and re-education and some training. Because once again, it is Scandinavian culture to treat their enemies better than their own people. And that's true. Right, Minnesota? Right? Anyway, so now the problem for you in your particular situation is that you have a trade where you got to be there. So you would have to come up with a completely new skill that is online in order to achieve that. So again, this is why we have that course, The World's Greatest Accounting Career. It doesn't teach you to be an accountant. It teaches you how to navigate the accounting field to get employed as directly and quickly as possible, primarily without having to go to college. That might be of interest to you, but the larger point is that main strategy is to find remote employment. If not that, then the only other way is to get fuck you money, adjusted for overseas standards of living and purchasing power. This is why a lot of people go to the Philippines, because the purchasing power of the dollar goes a lot further there. So here in the United States, kind of typical classic setup, you are a 50-year-old man. Your wife divorced you a decade prior. You are finally done with your child support or alimony or whatever. You were in the military or you worked in the union and you get some kind of token pension. And in another 10 to 15 years' time, you're going to get Social Security, of which will be a grand sum total of $3,000 a month. That is not, well, that is enough technically to live in the United States, but not well, right? Even in the cheap places, $36,000 a year. It's not that you can do it, going to be difficult. However, $36,000, and when I was over at the Philippines, it's basically multiplied by 3. That's like making $108,000, over $100,000 a year living over there. Now, keep in mind, we're talking food and lodging and healthcare. We're not talking cars and fancy shit. You want fancy shit, still going to run you around $80,000. I mean, it's not a 1-for-1. But your basics, your food, clothing, and shelter, yeah, it's way cheaper over there. So fuck you money to live overseas depends on the purchasing power you can get. But once you got the money, you're good to go. I think the guy who did the Avatar movies, I think he moved to New Zealand. He just bought property because he's a multimillionaire. He's got fuck you money. I think, didn't Tom Hanks move to Italy? I don't know why he moved to Italy. All right, fine. I think George Clooney was leaving too. You guys are actually leaving this time. You're not just saying it. You're saying you're leaving because Orange Man bad. Okay, fine. They got millions of dollars. They could go live wherever you want. You don't have millions of dollars, right? So you'd have to work up some kind of money so that you would just have essentially lifetime fuck you money, and you wouldn't be able to go to Japan, let alone live in Tokyo. Tokyo is one of the most expensive cities in the world. But that's the only other way is you have fuck you money by Tokyo standards of living. So you're looking at least, you're a younger man at your age, yeah, at least $2 million US because you're going to live so long, presumably. We hope you do. And those are the only three ways you're going to get there. And so in your individual case, you have your work cut out for you. I would not recommend going. I mean, you could do multiple strategies. You could put an application in to get a work visa in Japan. You might as well start that now because it's going to be a long time before that gets processed. You could go ahead and learn the Japanese language. You could do that, which you inevitably should if you end up living there. I would recommend you first figure out if you can even live there, right? But in your case, what I would recommend is you find some kind of online income, some kind of remote work, because you're not going to be a CNC machinist over in Japan. It's just not going to happen. I would also recommend you go visit over there and look, dude, there's a lot of things we get. I'll be honest with you. Chances of getting what you want is very low. I'm saying like 20%. Because there are tremendous hurdles. The best way is you become I'm not saying it to promote the course. I'm saying it because as far as I can tell, it's one of the most quickest routes to getting self-employment. You become an accountant, you get remote work, you set up your own shop, and we're looking at 3 years' time. And now you can at least afford to live over there. Then you can learn the language because you're not taking anyone's job. You could afford a doctor, presumably. You're gonna have to give up the machinist career, but that's at least a 3-year process. At least you just don't pick up accounting like that and move on. But and again, it doesn't have to be accounting. You're gonna have to learn a remote skill that's in demand. And I don't know, somebody more familiar with the world of online work can tell you what that is if you don't like accounting. Well, I would say it doesn't matter if you like accounting or not. It works for you. It's a tool. Because you don't like CNC machining. You don't like, oh my God, CNC machining. I love it. Yeah, those are the only 3 ways. Fuck you money, remote work, or the traditional apply, get a work visa, which is just going to be bogged down in government tape. And thankfully, going forward, I think the future is remote work. I think that is. I'd be curious if anyone else knows of another remote, because I get sick and tired, because not everyone wants to become an accountant. I get that. There's maybe something else. I mean, Cappy, you're sitting there, you're part of it, you're an author and you're a podcaster. Right. But I will never deny the amount of luck that I happen to resonate with an audience. That is not 100% under people's control. It surprised me. I'm as surprised as you guys are here. And I'm eternally grateful. Not everyone could, it's like the OnlyFans, not everyone could be in that top 2% that makes a living wage. I'll tell you this, though. I'll tell you this, client. You want to take a shot. I'm all for people taking a shot being a podcaster, YouTuber, internet influencer type. I'm all for it because you never know. If you're just yourself and you be who you be, the world is a big place, and you only really need like 1,000 hardcore fans who'd be kind enough to buy a book or give you some super chats or whatever, somehow support you. Weirder things have happened. So, but that, especially if you were a hot girl with big tits, I'd say there's your online there. Boom, you're done. Like if you girls want to go and work remote, I could. It's no problem. Go be OnlyFans. Go say, tee hee, hey guys, show some cleavage. Be good looking. And then girls would say, well, OnlyFans women don't make that much. It's like, yeah, it's because none of you know about niche specialization, and 99% of the girls on OnlyFans do like ass mail-in deliveries. You got to tweak, you got to tailor. It's a whole, we're not even talking advanced marketing, talking like differentiation, real basic shit. But oh, that's more work. Yeah. In either case, you're not a hot girl with big tits. So sorry. But for a guy to go and get an audience and all that, there's ways you can increase your marketing. There's ways you could do it quickly, but long-term and more permanent, you just got to be yourself on the internet. So people that naturally gravitate towards you over enough time tune in. Like, look at Shark Taz. Shark Taz's a very unique channel. But he's got like 8,000 followers. He does documentaries about sharks with relaxed, chill lounge music in the background. Now that's very fucking obscure, but look, he's doing very well. There's a niche for everything. So a pissed off machinist or CNC machinist in armpit hole of America, you got an interesting background. If you were an actual gang member and your mom was a heroin addict, and your dad was you got plenty of stories you could probably tell about. Plenty. Maybe don't want to show your face. But regardless, I think the best shot for you to get overseas, to Japan specifically, is you're going to have to derive some online income somehow. And whereas the temptation would be like, I'm going to become an internet influencer. You are not a hot white girl from the suburbs with big tits and dad's money. You don't have that ability. You don't have that chance. Something boring like accounting or anything else anybody else could come up with below, that's your route. And it's going to be a couple of years minimum where you're retooling. And if you can make it over there, work in security or bouncing, and teaching English, okay, but boy, that's going to be some limited income, man. Going to be real limited. And before you even do it, you got to just research visas. Like, you can't just go to a country. You got to get a work visa. You got to get permission, travel visa, residency versus tourist visas, that kind of thing. There's levels. And if you're remotely employed, fine, you're a tourist for 6 months. You get a 6-month tourist visa, if they even offer that in Japan. And then you got to fuck off somewhere for another 6 months. Maybe the Philippines where it's warmer. And by the way, a lot more resources available than just me. There's the Passport Bro community. They will have tons. They will help you. They will help. There's a Facebook group. Someone tag me in. They will give you the ins and outs of the specific country you want. So I go look up the Passport Bro community and see what they recommend. I would definitely plug into that community, and they will know, oh yeah, you got to get this type of thing and that. Just even every country is different. Like, you need proof of onward travel for some countries. I'm like, oh, fuck. So yeah, thoughts on the Hawk Tuah girl. Okay, is it over? Is she done? Is the thing done? Okay, she's done. All right. I can't. There shouldn't be a thought on the Hawk Tuah girl. There should be a thought on how America had such a huge reaction to her, and she got her own celebrity ship off of a fucking saying. It's a statement and a testament to how bad Americans are. I don't know. Is she successful? Did she make a lot of money? I'm sorry, Ken, $2. He says, hello. Thank you, Ken. RM, 500 yen. I'm living in Japan and teaching English. Teaching is honestly not a bad start, but he needs to start learning Japanese immediately. It opens doors. Yeah, well, that's any country. So there you go. It's going to make the problem he faces is to learn Japanese is a multi-year serious chore. Full-time work for a long time. For him to not live there. Now he's learned 4 languages already, so he's a polyglot. Guy learns a lot of languages. So maybe he's got a penchant for me. It won't be as okay. So you could learn a 4th language. And yeah, okay, go be an English teacher. I still think having online income would be a tremendous support. Because when I was traveling overseas, albeit briefly, I'm like, oh, yeah, I could live, as long as the money keeps coming in, I could live dirt cheap. This is on some kind of apartment, and coffee was like, even at the high end coffee, it's like $2. Like, holy cow, look at this. And McDonald's had the best coffee. I would go into the airport. I'd walk into the airport and just get coffee because this is a good walk. Samira, thoughts on the hot talker? Okay, yeah, that's the same guy we got there. All right, there you go. Link below. I've linked to that course, The World's Greatest Accounting Career, if you're interested in exploring accounting as an option. Also, I tried to find the book. There's a guy called Luca Venditti, Italian spelling, I believe. And he wrote a book on the MGTOW's Guide to Living on $200,000 in Southeast Asia. That'd be more of the FU money approach. And I couldn't find it on Amazon. Maybe they had taken it down. And I wanted to link to a book, but you can find it on Scribd. I'd like to give him the money, but I think Luca kind of went away. I don't know where he is, but it's a pretty good starting point. Although that's more for Southeast Asia, not Singapore or Japan. All right, that's it. We'll see you guys. Don't fucking do Singapore isn't Southeast. I'm talking the expensive places, you assholes. See you guys later. Toodles.